You didn't ask if I was okay. You just assumed I'd say yes, like I always did. For years, I paid the bills, fixed the messes, stayed quiet, because they said that's what love looks like. But love doesn't show up with a suitcase and demand entry. I used to be the strong one, the fixer, the one who never slammed the door, but not anymore. If you've ever kept the peace at your own expense, this story is for you. You'll see how I reclaimed my voice, my home, and my worth without yelling, without guilt. The day they showed up with casserole dishes and assumptions, I had already sold the condo, and when the officer asked, "Is this your residence?" I said yes, and for the first time, I meant it. Don't wait until your silence becomes your story. Watch now, before you let one more knock rewrite your piece. Before we dive into the story, if you're enjoying these meaningful stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more. Now, let's start the story together. They didn't ask. They just smiled. That same smile I'd seen since I was old enough to hold a plate at Sunday dinner. That thin, practiced, pleasant smile. The kind that meant a decision had already been made, and all that was left for me to do was say yes. The air conditioner in my parents' house buzzed like it was trying to drown out the tension. Outside, Sacramento was baking under the July sun. Inside, we had baked chicken, a suspiciously dry casserole, and the usual performance of warmth served on porcelain dishes. I brought lemonade, not because they asked, just because I always did. Mom placed her hand on my shoulder as I stepped into the kitchen, and I knew. That touch, soft, rehearsed, was always the prelude. The orchestra was tuning. The script had been written. "Jenna, sweetie," she said too brightly, "it's so good to see you." "Hey, Mom." I kissed her cheek. She smelled like gardenias and calculation. Lauren was already at the table, phone in hand, scrolling with the same detached expression she wore at every family event. Richard, Dad, stood by the window sipping something that wasn't his usual. Probably iced tea, probably spiked with distance. He didn't say much unless he had to defend whatever Mom wanted. We sat, we passed food, we commented on the heat and the neighbor's new dog, and then Mom, as if announcing dessert, dropped it. "Lauren's had a rough time lately," she began. She looked at me, not at Lauren. "The lease situation fell through, and you know how hard it is right now, so she'll be moving in with you for a little while." I paused, not because I was surprised, but because that's what the role required. One beat of silence to suggest consideration. "Of course," I said, smiling. "If it helps Lauren get back on her feet." Mom squeezed my hand like I'd said exactly what she'd hoped. Lauren didn't look up. That smile on my face? It wasn't kindness. It was strategy. It was the same one they'd used on me since I turned 21. Back then, it was car insurance, then tuition, then the lawyer fees, always dressed up as, "You're lucky, Jenna, you can help." Dinner moved on. Richard told a joke about HOA fines. Mom refilled my lemonade without asking. Lauren laughed once, though I couldn't tell if it was at the joke or a text on her phone. I chewed and nodded and smiled. They didn't know I'd sold that condo 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't about to stop them from planning her move into a place that no longer had my name on the mailbox. Somewhere in the noise, I started counting down, not to anything specific, just to the moment the curtain would finally drop. "We'll bring Lauren's mattress Friday night," Mom's text read. The second message said she'd bring her own dishes. That one made me laugh. Dry, quiet, unexpected. Not just because it was absurd, but because it was so perfectly her. That Friday, I woke up early and walked down to the farmer's market, weaving through the stalls with my canvas tote and empty mind. It was already warm, the kind of Sacramento heat that baked itself into the sidewalk before noon. I passed on the peaches even though they looked perfect. Touched them gently, then moved on. I didn't need fruit. I needed space. Back at my new apartment across town, I made a cup of coffee, sat at the small table by the window, and scrolled through the steady stream of texts. Elaine's updates came like clockwork. Bringing a spare lamp for Lauren's room. Does your water heater still run too hot? We'll need to clean the carpets first. I didn't respond. I didn't correct them. I let the plan bloom wild in their heads, like vines crawling up the wrong house. A coworker leaned into my cubicle Thursday afternoon, voice light but edged. Everything okay at home? I smiled. Sure. Why? You just seem far away. I shrugged. I guess I am. Friday evening came fast. I was finishing a sandwich on my balcony when my phone rang. Mom. I didn't pick up. She called again, then a third time. Finally, a fourth, this time with a voicemail. When I listened to it, I closed my eyes. Jenna, what's going on? Some man opened the door. He said he lives there now. He said you don't live there anymore. What is this? I called her back 10 minutes later. Calm, steady. I sold the place weeks ago. A long pause on the other end. Then her voice, sharp. You didn't tell us. No, I said. I didn't. The silence stretched, fraying. She wanted to scream. Maybe she did after hanging up. I turned my phone off and looked around my new space. Sparse, but mine. The light filtered in, soft through the linen curtains. I felt something lift. They thought, that was the twist, that I'd sold the condo and not told them. They didn't realize I hadn't just changed addresses. I had changed the locks on all of it. And the best part? They were just beginning to notice the door wouldn't open. I stood up, stretched, and let the quiet wrap around me like a soft old coat. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation, not even an apology. The knock came at 7:03 p.m. 3 sharp raps, just polite enough to sound controlled, just forceful enough to say, "We're still in charge." I didn't move at first. I sat on the edge of my couch, feet flat on the hardwood floor, breathing through my nose. The light through the blinds painted my walls in golden slats, warm and quiet. It had been a long day, a good one, and now apparently it was over. The knock came again. I stood and walked to the door, not fast, not slow, just steady. When I opened it only halfway, I was not surprised by what I saw. Elaine stood in front holding a tote bag and a casserole dish. Lauren had a suitcase at her feet and a hoodie slung over her arm. Richard stood a few paces back, arms crossed, frowning like someone who'd been personally inconvenienced by logic. "Jenna," Mom said with a too wide smile. "We thought we'd just drop a few things off. Lauren's ready to get settled." I didn't say anything, just looked at them for a beat. "You could have told us you moved," Lauren added, her voice already carrying blame, "instead of playing these stupid games." I exhaled slowly. "This isn't a game. This is my home, and you're not coming in." Mom blinked, as if she hadn't heard me right. "Don't be ridiculous. We've put up with a lot from you, but this is—" "There it is," I said soft. "That line. Right before you ask for something else." Richard stepped forward. "You don't talk to your mother like that. You don't show up uninvited to someone else's home," I replied. Mom's smile cracked. "Jenna, we've done everything for you." I tilted my head. "Have you?" Lauren threw her suitcase down with a loud thud. "I can't believe this. You're really going to let me stand out here like this?" "Yes," I said simply. She let out a scoff, like the sound could knock the door down. I stepped back, picked up my phone, and dialed. "I'd like to report trespassers. Yes, they're refusing to leave my property. No, I haven't let them in. I don't feel safe." The change was instant. Mom's eyes widened. Richard started to protest. Lauren muttered something I didn't catch, but I didn't lower my voice. I gave my address clearly and hung up. They stood there in a stunned little cluster. We waited in silence. 5 minutes, then 10. Long enough for the air to go heavy and strange. The officer arrived, a woman, calm and steady. She walked up the steps, nodded at me, then turned to my family. "Is there a problem here?" she asked. "She's our daughter," Mom said quickly. "We were just bringing some things. She didn't tell us she moved." "This is her residence?" the officer asked me. "Yes." "She's the legal tenant?" she asked again, more for their sake than mine. I nodded. "I have the lease inside if you need it." The officer didn't flinch. "Then I'm going to have to ask you all to leave. You can't occupy or demand access to someone else's home without their permission." Richard opened his mouth to speak, but the officer raised her hand gently. "This isn't up for debate." Mom looked stunned. Lauren looked furious. As they turned to go, Lauren muttered, "You'll regret this." I didn't blink. "No," I said, closing the door behind me, the click sharp and final. "I've regretted everything until now." I stood in the quiet afterward, not touching anything, just letting the silence spread like light through a clean window. I felt still. I felt real. And for once, I wasn't the one left standing on someone else's porch. My phone lit up again. Mom. Then Lauren. Then a number I didn't recognize. I didn't open any of them. I left it on the counter and kept stirring my coffee, even though it was already cold. The spoon clinked against the ceramic like a heartbeat I didn't feel anymore. There had been 37 missed calls by noon. My work inbox was calm, but my personal phone buzzed like a wasp trapped in a jar. I silenced it and slipped it into a drawer. But that didn't stop the story from spreading. The first I saw of it was during lunch break. My coworker, Jamie, slid into the seat across from me in the break room, brow furrowed in that hesitant, I don't want to get involved way. "Hey, Jenna. Is everything okay at home?" I looked up from my sandwich. "Define okay." She gave a soft laugh, then tilted her phone toward me. "Your mom's post. It's getting shared a lot." I took the phone. There it was. A childhood photo of Lauren in her white recital dress, hands poised over the keys, ribbon in her hair. The caption started with, "I never thought I'd be one of those mothers," heartbroken by the coldness of her own daughter, and spiraled from there. 3 long paragraphs of half-truths and poetic framing. No mention of leases or boundaries or late-night knocks. Just Lauren, the fragile one, needing shelter. And me, the one with so much, but no room in her heart. The comments flooded in. I knew Jenna was always distant. Family is everything. You never turn your back. She'll regret this when she's old and alone. Names I hadn't seen since high school graduation. People who'd sent me wedding invitations I never answered. Some who hadn't liked a single thing I'd posted in years, now suddenly present, pious, and loud. I didn't reply. Not to the comments, not to Mom's text that followed. "Please explain to everyone what you're doing." Not to Lauren's, which was just a string of crying emojis and "I don't deserve this." I sat on my couch with my laptop and opened a folder I'd labeled Proof. There were screenshots of bank transfers, $2,000 toward Mom's mortgage when they were just a little short one Christmas. A receipt for Lauren's DUI lawyer, $1,150. The old co-signed car loan agreement where I'd made the final 18 payments after Lauren stopped showing up to her receptionist job. I found a text from 2020. "Lauren, 2:17 a.m. You're such a boring robot, Jenna. You think money fixes everything. You don't even feel anything." I read it twice. Then I opened Facebook. I didn't write a monologue. I didn't quote Eleanor Roosevelt or post a meme. I uploaded 4 screenshots and 1 line beneath them. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. No emojis, no hashtags, no tagging anyone. I closed the tab and shut my laptop. The silence afterward was different. Not peaceful, not loud, just clean, like air after a thunderstorm. The notifications didn't stop, but I didn't check them. I knew what they said. Some people would twist this too, but others would understand, even if they never said so out loud. That night, I didn't dream about doors slamming or voices rising. I dreamed of nothing, just stillness. The kind that doesn't demand attention, just drapes itself over everything like soft fabric. The sun came in slow and golden through the linen curtains. It touched the kitchen counter, then the worn wooden floorboards, then the edge of my desk where I'd left a half-written grocery list. I stretched, stood, and put the kettle on. The tea I made wasn't special, just a chamomile bag from a box I'd bought weeks ago, but it felt different. It felt earned. I padded around barefoot, not rushing anywhere. I didn't need to be anywhere. No one was expecting me to solve anything or open a door to anyone else's chaos. I sorted through a small stack of mail, tossed most of it, and opened my laptop. There it was, the lease confirmation. No outstanding balances, no second name on the contract. My name, alone. For the first time in what felt like years, it was just me. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Then I opened my voicemail app, 21 unheard messages. I didn't listen to them. One by one, I deleted each one. The last one had no transcript, just the words, voicemail unavailable. I smiled, a real one this time, and hit delete. Outside, the city moved at its usual rhythm. Dogs barked somewhere in the distance. A car door shut. On my balcony, I watched the shadows stretch across the building, across the street. A breeze pushed through, lifting the ends of my hair. I didn't move. I let it happen. 3 floors down, an elderly neighbor stepped onto her balcony with a watering can. She saw me and raised her hand, palm open. I waved back. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. There was something reassuring in the smallness of it, the shared silence, the choice not to fill it. I leaned against the railing and looked out over Sacramento's dusty rooftops. It was still hot, but the light was softer now, the kind of August heat that told you summer was on its way out. I thought about how many summers I had spent bracing for impact, for drama, for guilt dressed up as duty. Now the silence didn't feel like waiting. It felt like peace. I whispered to no one, "This is mine." Not the tea, not the balcony, just the quiet, the peace, the permission to stop answering. A knock came at the door behind me, sharp but not urgent. I didn't move. I didn't startle. I just looked out at the city and let the moment stay. Whoever it was, they'd wait, or they wouldn't. Either way, I didn't owe the silence to anyone but myself. I didn't move. I didn't even ask who it was. The knock had a rhythm I'd heard my whole life, sharp, familiar, just on the edge of polite. It was the kind of knock that didn't wait for permission. It assumed presence. It assumed yes. In our old house, knocking always came with the creak of a doorknob turning before you'd even answered. That's how things worked. There were no true boundaries, just pauses before the next intrusion. But this door stayed closed. The evening light spilled across the floor, orange and slow. Outside, the city moved at its own pace. Cars in the distance, a child laughing, a bus exhaling at the stop across the street. Life continued, and I stayed still. I turned off the kitchen light, letting the apartment dim into something soft. I didn't need brightness to see clearly. I moved to the stove, poured myself another cup of tea, the same chamomile from earlier, its warmth wrapped around my fingers. I sat at the small table by the window. A breeze lifted the curtain slightly. On the street below, someone was unloading groceries from their car. Someone else was walking a dog. I was no longer bracing for the next knock or the next ask. I was just here. I opened my journal. "They will tell this story again," I wrote slowly. "I won't be in it." That thought didn't carry bitterness, just truth. People rewrite the past when it suits them. They adjust the colors, change the angles. I used to try to correct them. Now I let them draw whatever version helped them sleep at night. I sipped the tea, felt it warm my throat. The knock came again, softer this time, almost hesitant. I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up the pen and added one more line beneath the others. Not every door deserves to be opened forever. The knock faded. Somewhere across town, a traffic light changed. A song played faintly from a passing car. The tea grew cold, but I didn't mind. There would be more evenings like this, quiet ones, whole ones. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing something behind that closed door. I felt like I had finally come home. I stood and walked slowly to the window. The breeze was picking up now, warm and dry like so many Sacramento nights. Below, someone was locking their bike to a street sign. A couple crossed the street hand in hand, bathed in the golden hue of the street lamp above them. There was life outside my door. Real, moving, unburdened life. And for once, I didn't feel like a shadow on its edge. I glanced at the door again. There was no sound now, no rustling, no footsteps, just the echo of what could have been and the certainty of what I chose. Peace, I was learning, is not the absence of people. It's the presence of boundaries. I sat back down, picked up my pen one last time, and underlined the words, "Not every door deserves to be opened forever. Not out of spite, not out of vengeance, but simply because some closures are sacred." The city breathed around me. I let it. Sometimes the hardest doors to keep closed are the ones we've spent a lifetime holding open. But that evening, in the quiet hum of my apartment, I finally chose peace over permission. Families can blur the line between love and obligation, but love, real love, doesn't demand silence or self-erasure. It listens. It respects. It lets go when holding on causes harm. If you've ever been made to feel guilty for setting boundaries, know this: choosing yourself isn't cruelty, it's clarity. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share your experience or simply sit with it as I once did, with a warm cup of tea and a closed door behind me.